This great masechet of Shabbat. Okay. If you're nervous about Shabbat, it's a school of Yirat Shamayim. Tzaddikim, when they come to Shabbat, they're very calm, but then they're also nervous that they're, like in the Beit HaMikdash, they're going to be over on something. And it's a big school of Yirat Shamayim to keep Shabbat. Okay, so just as a very quick hakdama, introduction, we're going to be speaking about the Melacha of Hotza'ah. The issur of transporting an item from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim and vice versa. Both of them are an issur d'oraita. And what is a Rishus HaYachid? The private domain. That's a domain that is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim and is surrounded by a fence that's 10 tfachim high. And that can happen in the ground as well, right? And the fence can be the walls of the ground themselves, or it could be on just level ground with a fence that you build on top of that. Or you can have it on a mountain, on a little pile, a little hill that you climb, and since the area on top is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, that is also a Rishut HaYachid, even without a fence around it, since we're going to see there's a concept of good aspects, so it's as if you have a fence around it. It's as if you have something around it. That's a Rishut HaYachid. A Rishut HaRabim are public thoroughfares that go from city to city, and there's some conditions that need to be fulfilled for them to be called Rishut HaRabim. One of them is they have to be 16 amot wide, which is about anywhere between about 30 to 32 feet wide. Others say that you also need 600,000 people to walk through. Another thing is that they need to be mefulash. Mefulash means they have to be open on both sides. It has to be a public thoroughfare from one side to the other. This area is called a public domain, right? And now this public domain, how high does it travel? Till where? In Rishut HaYachid, you know how high it travels? Till the heavens. Your backyard, if it's surrounded, goes up to the sky. But the Rishut HaRabim only goes up to the area of 10 tfachim. After that, you're out of the domain of Rishut HaRabim. So what domain are you in? Okay, it's a good question. You might be in a domain, a new domain, which means if you're able to get something from that area or put something down higher than 10 tfachim, let's say there's a little something there, like a little beam or a mailbox or something sticking up, and that brings us we'll lead right into the next makom. It's called makom petur. Makom petur means an area in Rishut HaRabim that's less than 4 by 4 tfachim, which is off the ground. Now, off the ground doesn't mean an inch or even a foot. Maybe a foot, but let's not talk American numbers. It doesn't mean off the ground, literally, because off the ground is always on the ground. As we know, there's a rule called lavud. We'll talk about it later. Anything within 3 tfachim is considered like it's there, like it's a magnet. If you have something, let's say this is the ground of the Rishut HaRabim, I have something right over here. So the truth is, it's magnet. Just think of it like a magnet. It's not really a magnet. It's not really the way the mechanics of lavud, according to some Rishonim, are a little bit like magnetic, like as if it's right away, it's attached to its source. So therefore, it's still on the ground. So when can't you not apply the laws of lavud? At 3 tfachim. So at 3 tfachim, it's just off the ground now, right? Okay, you could also say it's now 3 tvachim off the ground also, but at that moment it began. Okay, so at that point, if something is off the ground of Reshut Rabim, and it's less than 4, but it's on its own surface, that's less than 4 by 4, that's not a real domain, that's called the makom pitur. What does that mean, pitur? Pitur means that it's not really an area where you can be chayav. In the Torah, we're talking about from transporting it from it to another domain, or from another domain to it. Reshut Yachid and Reshut Rabim are fair game for this Isur. That's where the Isur was mentioned, right? If you go from one to the other, right? That would be a transport. That would be an Isur of the Torah of Hotza'ah, of carrying, transporting. This area is not. It's a Makom Petur. And then we have a Carmelit. Okay? A Carmelit is a concept that the Chachamim made, where really this Carmelit would probably be a Makom Petur. It wouldn't be Reshut HaYachid, and it wouldn't be Reshut HaRabim. We're not going to speak about a Carmelit today, on today's Daf, so it's not. We're not going to get into that too much right now, but there's a whole bunch of different cases that can be a Carmelit. They basically don't fit into Reshut HaYachid, Reshut HaRabim, but there were areas that the Chachamim felt that people will render as one or the other, and therefore they made an Isur to carry from a Reshut HaYachid to a Carmelit, just like it would be a Isur to carry from Reshut HaYachid to Reshut HaRabim, and from a Carmelit to Reshut HaYachid, and the same thing would be from Reshut HaRabim to a Carmelit to Reshut HaRabim. Okay? It becomes an Isur de Rabbanon. But, good? Okay. So now, okay, that's a little short introduction, and let's begin the Mishnah. So, Zakta Haley Mishnah says the Mishnah Ketosha. Yitziot HaShabbat Shtayim Shehen Arba Bifnim, Ushtayim Shehen Arba B'chutz. What does that mean? Yitziot HaShabbat, okay? Yeah, Yitziot literally means taking out, transporting outward, okay? But we'll see soon. It means taking out of a reshut, taking out of a domain. Okay? Wherever you are situated, into another domain. Okay? As we're going to see later, that even bringing into a home is going to be called yitziot. Yitziot, that's taken in. Why is that taking out? Because you're taking out of the area where you are situated into the other type of domain. So, there are 2 yitziot in Shabbat, shehen arba, which turn into 4. Bifnim, inside, which means in Reshut HaYachid. Ushtayim shehen arba b'chutz. And there are also 2 hotzaot that turn into 4 bachutz, meaning not in Reshut HaYachid, but in Reshut HaRabim. So the 2 that turn into 4 inside, 2 that turn into 4 outside. Okay, today's daf is a little like it's in the way we're going to learn it. Don't forget about the depth and all the lumdus. It's just. It's a lot of like numbers and like just like it's a little bit hard to concepts and the language. You just have to figure the language. It's really about the language of and each case, what it means. What's 2 to 4? What exactly do you mean? Tell me the turns 2, the turn which 4. That's what it's about. So let's just get that very clearly again. Yitziot HaShabbat, transporting out of a domain, is shtayim. There are 2 cases of carrying a chayfetz from one domain to the other domain. Shehen arba, that really, those 2 cases really turn to 4 cases. And all those 4 cases will be asur for the person who's standing bifnim, indoors. Indoors is a reshut hayachid. Our homes are reshut hayachid. That person in the Mishnah is going to be called the Baal HaBayit. The Baal HaBayit means the man that owns a home, the rich man. That's what we call him in the Mishnah. We show him speak about why. It's just simply, it's mainly so that you should know when you say Baal HaBayit, you always know the guy inside. The ani, the poor man, where is he? He doesn't have a home. He's outside. He's trying to get in. He's talking to the. So he's called the man that's situated in Reshut HaRabim. So the first case is Yitziot Shabbat Shtayim Shein Arba Bifnim. There are 2 Isurim that turn into 4. Why don't we just say 4? So we'll see exactly why. Why they're called 2 that turn into 4. For the person that is standing Bifnim, Ushtayim Shein Arba Bachutz. There's also 2 other.
You get one from one domain to the other. It's 2. And from that domain
we'll see.
To the first one is also 2.
Let's see. The Mishnah is going to say. The Mishnah is going to say exactly. So Ushtayim Shein Arba Bachutz. That's why I don't want to just guess, because it's going to be ferish. Ushtayim Shein Arba Bachutz. There are 2 that turn into 4 for the person who's standing B'Reshut HaRabim. Okay. So now the Mishnah explains. Okay. The first thing that the Mishnah explains is the Isurim De'oraita. Okay? The Isurim De'oraita are, as you guessed probably, are the 2. The 2 that turn into 4 means like this. There are 2 for the person inside that are De'oraita. That turn into 4 because there's another 2 cases for the rich man, for the Baal HaBayit inside, which are only the Rabbanan. And the same thing is for the poor man. There are 2 cases for the poor man outside, which are De'oraita, which evolved into 4 because there's another 2 cases for him, which will only be an Isur D'Rabbanan for him. So now, the Mishnah now explains the cases that are Isurei De'oraita. Okay, now which ones would you explain first? If you were right in the Mishnah.
Outside to inside is De'oraita.
No, I'm just saying, in what the Mishnah just said, the Mishnah said that there's going to be 2 De'oraita that turn into 4 for the person Bifnim, for the Baal HaBayit, and 2 De'oraita that turn into 4 for the Ani. So now you would go in order and you would go back to the Baal HaBayit, because it started with him. But the Mishnah doesn't do that. The Mishnah continues, which is the normal derech, the Rishonim speak out, that once you left off the second category, I was talking about the ani, the person bachutz, so we explained him first. So now what are we about to explain in the Mishnah? The cases of the ani who is standing bachutz. But the Mishnah right now is first going to explain just the 2, the oraitas. So first we're going to explain the 2 oraitas of the ani bachutz, because we ended off saying that there is such a case. Right? He was the second one in the introduction of the Mishnah. And then we will explain the 2 of the oraita of the Baal HaBayit who's bifnim. The other 2 that are derivatives, the rabbanans of the ani, and that's coming next in the Mishnah. Okay? This is the setup. If you have clarity in the setup of the Mishnah, it's easier to understand. Okay, so it says like this. Ketzad. So what does Ketzad mean? Ketzad means, how do you have a case of the ani and the Baal HaBayit? We're going to start with the ani. Being over 2 cases, the oraita, and here it is. Ha'ani omed bachutz. The ani is standing outside. In the Reshut HaRabim. U'Baal HaBayit bifnim. The Baal HaBayit is standing in the Reshut HaYachid indoors. Okay? Now I'll be very, brief. For the sake of brevity, you just have to say, every time we say ani, we know we're talking about Reshut HaRabim, the man in the Reshut HaRabim. And when you say Baal HaBayit, you think Reshut HaYachid indoors. Pashat he'ani et yado lifnim. The ani stretched his hand with the item inside it. Lifnim, indoors, v'natan letoch yado sheba'al habayit, and placed the item into the hands of the Baal HaBayit. So now, what did he do? he did an Isur. What did he do? What he did was, as you may all know already from before, but this is really what the Mishnah is introducing to us here, is that in order, that is already one case. That's one of the two cases where the Ani is going to be Chayav. What did he do? Since he took the item, let's say I'm outdoors now, the Ani, I take the item, I put my hand now, this table is now the Rishut HaYachid, it's indoors already. V'natan l'toch yado, put your hand there for a second, shel bal habayit. So now what I did was, I made an akira, I uprooted. The Mishnah is now telling you that in order to be chayav, there has to be two things that have to be done. In order to be chayav, in this isur of hotza'ah, in this isur of the Torah, you have to do, the act of transporting has to be done in its entire, complete form. The complete form of transporting something is not putting it down, and it's not picking it up. It's both together. It's picking it up, uprooting it from where it was. It's here in the Rishut HaRabim. I uproot it. So now I did the first part of it, and now I completed it by putting it down in the Rishut HaYachid. That's called an akira and a hanacha. Akira means to be okay, to uproot it from where it was situated, where it was resting. So now that began its odyssey, its journey to be transported. It's like in limbo, and now I complete its journey by placing it in a different domain. That is called a malacha. Now, this malacha is a little bit of a chidush. What you do? Made a fire, you sorted something, you created every malacha, and the Rishonim speak out that it's really more of a chidush. It's called a malacha gerua. Tosfot over here says, he said it's like a weaker type of malacha. And but we want to strengthen that malacha, so we open up the masechet with it. It's not a game. But really, what happened to anything happened? Everything changed? You created anything? Did you do anything? Meaning, all the malachot, there's a creation, it's like an artisan act. That's melechet machshevet, that changes something. Yeah, I create electricity, I sort out something, I created good from bad, so now it's ready to be eaten. What did I do? This is the same thing, it's just in a different area. But that itself was what the Torah said, transporting something from one domain to the other, is astur min HaTorah.
It says, "V'natan letoch yado shel ba'al davar."
Exactly.
Is that not literally that he has to give it in the hand?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you put it on the floor.
No, that's also fine.
Oh, that's
Good question. Why it says that? But that's just as good. So when we put it into Amnon's hand, he was the Balabayit. Right. So now who did that act? Let's go back to the Mishnah for a second. Amnon didn't do anything. I did everything. He was there, and even though he made it possible for me to do it, okay, but he's not chayav. Because he wasn't involved in, I placed it down, and I uprooted it. So therefore the ani is chayav. That's case number one of the omed bachutz. Who's the omed bachutz? The ani. Okay, fine, very good. Next case, that the omed bachutz is chayav, or shenatal mitocha vehotzi. Yeah, I don't know if you don't mind. You're the balabait. You have it in your hand. You're sitting there, and I knock on the door. You say, "Oh," you open the door. You say, "Oh, could I have some of that coffee, please?" So now, look what's happening. I'm the ani. I lift it up. So I just did the akira out of from Rishut HaYachid, and I take it now. Vehotzi. I take it out. Now this is you wanted to know what there's a lot to speak about is on this word vehotzi. We're not going to get into it right now. There's Rabbi Kiva Eges, Rashi says, and you put it down. Oh, what do I have to put it down for? Once I go like this, and it's here, it's down, just like in the first case when I gave it to the Balabayit, when he held it, that's okay, we're not getting into that right now, but that's something that there's a lot to speak about. But it says here, let's just not get complicated. It's very smooth now. So I took it from the Balabayit, so I did the Akira. I'm the man bachutz, I'm the bachutz man, I'm the ani. I took it from the, by the way, it's a school for parnasah, don't be nervous. If anybody got nervous that I kept saying I'm the ani, it's a school of parnasah. If you say that you're the ani, and you're learning Torah, so you know why it's a school of Parnasah? Because you're learning Torah. Torah is a school of Parnasah. So now, you pick it up, and you take it out, and you put it down. The ani is chayav. That's a second case where the man outside is chayav. So I know that we're saying it very slowly and very clearly, and it sounds a little bit too elementary, but there's so many cases coming that it's very, you have to get clarity. So let's just say them again. The ani, the man ani, there's two cases for the man who's omeid bachutz, that is chayav midoraita. Yes. Yes. Skila. Skila, the worst death. It's like avodah zara.
Can you define what skila is in English?
Skila means, thank you. Skila is to stoning, but very quickly they throw him off like a cliff. Not a cliff. It's double his height. They tie him his hands up. They make him a little drunk, so he shouldn't be so scared. So you have to do it. If he doesn't die from the fall, his hands are tied, so he usually hits his. Then, should I say this in English? This is going public. So.
Give a little Yirat Shamayim to people.
Yirat Shamayim. Anyways.
This is all you get punished for transporting like this?
Yeah, just that act. That's it. Yeah. And by the way, it could be a toothpick. As long as the guy says, "What are you talking about? It's a toothpick in my pocket," and we'll see soon. You don't have to. What's it called? Put it into anybody's hand. You have a toothpick in your pocket, and they warn you not to do it. The ani bachutz, he's sitting there. So now he uproots it by walking. We'll get to that case more tomorrow. Walking is also transportation, and then he walks inside. But that's it. Why? What did he do? So what's so bad? Come on, nice guy. His grandmother asked him for a toothpick. She's very old and she's crying. She has something in her teeth. You gonna kill him? The answer is that what you did was you were testifying by keeping the 39 malachot that Hashem created the world and stopped creating the world on Shabbat, and he rested. Every moment that you don't do these malachot, it's testimony that God made the world and is running the world. When you transgress one of these malachot, what you are doing is saying it is not true. There's no God that made the world and rested. Chas v'shalom. That is why you're chayav skila. That is what you're doing. It's not. It's more. It's not so much about the toothpick. It's more about what you have now broken your testimony. But right now, that's not so pertinent to. I can't get into the whole hashkafot of Shabbat. But that's what you're doing. Every melacha that you keep, that you observe, is testimony to the greatest fact of the world, of the existence in the world. And it's so important that every single Jew, how many Jews are there? Millions, has to do it for 24 hours straight to testify in court. The court, where's the court? The court is the whole world. When they're going by and they're driving on Shabbat, and you're walking home, and you have a mile walk home, and you live in Florida, and it's August, and you're dripping, and everybody's driving, and you have a very nice Tesla at home, and the air conditioning goes on right when you wake up in the morning, because it knows from your watch that you woke up, so the air conditioning already turned on. So when you get into the Tesla, the car is already freezing. So from your house into the Tesla, you don't even sweat anything. And you're wondering, why? I'm such a wealthy man. Why do I have to walk for a mile? The answer is, you are testifying with every step to all the cars that are going by, and to the birds, and to the trees, and to everyone to the world. You're screaming, Hashem hu Elokim. Hashem is my God. And He made the world in 6 days, and He rested. And He is still controlling the world right now. And the moment that you break that testimony, you're declaring to the world the chas v'shalom, the opposite. And that is why it is paramount to avodah zarah. When someone keeps Shabbat, the Gemara says it's as if he's keeping the whole Torah. And when someone breaks the Shabbat, chas v'shalom, he is being oved avodah zarah. That's exactly why he's being oved avodah zarah. And that's why we have to learn every detail of Shabbat. This is a malacha. This is a complete act, and no acts that are complete and are creative and our artisan and our melech and machshevet can be done on this day. It's part of our testimony. Yeah.
You said that there's two witnesses that have to.
Yeah, has to warn him
every time.
every time
when he walks with a toothpick.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to give
So
skila.
then it's not chayav mitah because nowadays who's going to warn?
Okay, so the truth is, to be chayav skila, you need two witnesses to warn him, and it's very difficult because even if two witnesses warn him, he has to tell the two witnesses, "Oh, really? I'm chayav skila for carrying the toothpick from outside to in. Oh, I know, I hear, and I don't care." And then immediately, within 3 seconds, has to begin to do the malacha. He has to tell them, "I know, I don't care," and begin. But let's say it takes him a minute to start, or he doesn't say, "I know, I don't care." The Gemara says he doesn't get skila. Okay, so you say one second. So this guy's off the hook. He's not off the hook at all. He's karet. Karet means that Hashem will cut him off before the age of 50 if he did it b'mezid, willingly. But this court, the courts here, we can't do anything to him. Okay? Fine. Now, if someone does it b'shogeg, inadvertently, which is a very, it's not just, okay, fine, it was my mistake. My mistake, really, a person that doesn't have a mistake is chayav mitah. Because you have to make sure not to do things by mistake. Because what you're doing is you're doing something, it's so terrible that you chayav karet or skila. And not only that, you have to bring a korban. Instead of you really deserve to be on the mizbeach. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu in His kindness said, bring a korban and do teshuvah. When you see that korban, that blood of the korban going there, the person does teshuvah, then I consider it you're atoned for. Okay, let's go back to our Mishnah. Yeah.
One question. How many cases throughout the times that people get actually skila, like actually happen, that they go Shabbat?
So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that if it happened once every 7 years, that was called the killer bezdin. And one Bandam says once every 70 years. Now, because there's so many details, and it's so hard to actually give it, with all the Eidim, it has to happen exactly like we said before, and the Eidim have to be kosher, and all the Eidos they have to corroborate their words with each other, and they had to be exactly like I told you before. And Baruch Hashem, because of the law, since there was a stick hanging on the wall, the Rebbe came to the shir, he put the stick up on the wall, he gave a smack over here, a crack of a whip, and he put the whip up. Then that's it, he didn't have to use it. Because we learn Gemara Shabbat, and we figure out every detail, this detail is chayav skila, and that one chayav skila, and this happens, and we get into, therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is warning us through the whole masechet Shabbat. Therefore, Baruch Hashem, most people weren't over on Shabbat. And they weren't over on other avirot because because it comes with a death sentence. Okay. Anyways, we're in the first case. That was case number 1. What's case number 2? The case number 2 we were up to now is when I took it from Anon, from the Balabait, I did the akira. Everybody knows what akira means. Akira means the uprooting. You uprooted it from its domain in Rishut Hayachid, and I did the hanacha in Rishut Harabim Bachutz. That is He'ani Chayav Ubal Habayit Patur. In this case, it's also mutar. He didn't do anything. Why not? Because he didn't do a thing. Okay? He's not even over on Isur D'Rabbanan, and he's even allowed to make it possible for the ani to do the malacha. Now, it wouldn't be a good idea, maybe it's Misayel Dvarave. It's not an Isur D'Rabbanan of anything to do with, it could be that there's another mitzvah for him to say, hey, stop. But in what he did, all he did was this. Either he took it from him and put it outside, or he brought it from outside and put it down. He wasn't over on any isurim of the Isur Hotza'ah, even in the Rabbanon. Maybe, a good Jew wouldn't do that. Obviously, there's maybe some other isurim that, don't do that. But we're concentrating now on the Isur Shabbat. Isur Shabbat is not even a D'Rabbanan that he did. Okay. So what cases do we take care of there? Shtayim she'in arba bachutz. No, we took care of the last clause of the second clause of the Mishnah, Shtayim shein arba bachutz, we took care of the Shtayim, not the arba. Now let's go to the Shtayim, the first clause of the Mishnah, Shtayim shein arba bifnim. That's the Balabayit. So that we can figure that out together. Pashat Balabayit et yado lachutz, v'natan l'toch yado shel ani. If the Balabayit, Amnon, you just show everyone if you don't mind. You're the Balabayit. So now he uprooted it and he put it all the way into Mesari. You have to bring it all the way out. Bachutz. So now he was okay from Reshut HaYachid and he placed it in Reshut.
Bite gives it to you, you're just sitting there.
Right. So now he did both parts of the Malacha. You always have to get both parts in the Akira, the uprooting, and the Hanacha, the placing. To have a complete transportation. For lack of a better word, we use an English word. The English word, I don't know if that really does it. I don't know if there's any word in the English language that can encapsulate entirely this, the whole act. I call it the issue of transportation, transport. But in the transportation, the halachic transportation, there has to be an akira and an och. I don't know if in Webster's that's what the word transportation means, but that's what we're going to call it. This issue of hotzah, we can call it hotzah. Exit, okay? Taking out from one rishut to other rishut. So now we're getting the first clause. We're now going backwards, right? We started from the second clause, we're going back to the first clause. But we're only working on the shtayim. The shtayim of the Balabayit was what, Rabotai? The first case was what Amnon just did. Natal mitoch yadi shalani. Or natal mitocha, if you don't mind. Again, he took from here. Wait, so stop there for a second. He took. So now who just did the akira? Amnon, which is the Balabayit. He's the man of bifnim. And now he does vichnis Balabayit. And now he brought it. And he brought it in and placed it down. Okay, there he's chayav. So there we have it. Ve'ani patur, and the ani is patur. Okay, so now the first case that we just did. What was the first case that we just said right now? That pashat balabait, you brought it out. What did you do? You did like what we call hotza'ah. And the other one was called hachnasa, indoors. But we call them both, we call them hotza'ot. Okay? So now we have the shtayim and the shtayim. The two and the two, which are the worst. But what we don't have, Rabotai, is the Shehein Arba. What's the Shehein Arba? That turn into another two. In both cases, in both categories, when the Ani was over Shtayim Midoraita, or when the Ashir, the Balabayit, was over on the Doraitas, it evolves into another two cases which are only Asur for the Ani Midrabanan, and the other two that are Asur for the Balabayit Midrabanan. So now the Mishnah will delineate those added cases midrabanan. Okay, so let's start. Pashat ha'ani et yado lifnim. V'natal balabayit mitocha. The ani is pashat lifnim. So now what did I do so far, Rabotai? Did I do the full malacha? No. I did the akira. I didn't do the hanocha. Okay? V'natal balabayit mitocha. And now he took it, and now you put it down. So now Amnon did the hanacha and I did the akira. Or, next case, shenatan litocha. I put my empty hand, you have this indoors, I put my empty hand in here, v'natan litocha, v'hotzi. Okay? And I place it down. So these two cases are Isur de Rabbanan. For who? Both. For both, exactly.
What What's the difference between that and the first one, time around?
Because he put it in his hand and he like.
None of us did Akira and Hanocha. He did the Akira, I did the Hanocha. Or I did the Akira and he did the Hanocha. So we only did half a malacha. Okay? Now.
Well, there's another two that we can have. Or am I
Yeah.
too fast?
Before you said, we're about to say another two right now. So let's just first finish and then we'll talk about your, let's just get that, okay? Now let's go a little further, okay? Another way, Pashat Balabayit et Yado L'chutz. Now you do this, Anon. V'natal ha'ani mitucha. So right now he just did the Akira from the Reshut HaYachid, and I take it from him and I place it down. So now this happened, this went this way. Or you put your empty hand outside. She natan letocha. I do the Akira. V'yichnis, and he brings it in. So this is again shneien pturim. Both these cases are patur, but they're both isur d'Rabbanan.
So it doesn't matter if his hand is outside and then he brings it in, or if it's inside and you put it in.
Exactly. So, what's really going on over here, Rabbatai, is
So what did you do the first time?
so
The first time, what did you do? Where he's exempt.
between these. I'll get them in a second. Between these four cases that the last four cases that we just did, there are really in each case, there's an Issa D'Rabbanan for each one of us. So there are four cases, so there should be 4 Issa D'Rabbanans for myself and 4 for Amnon. But we're only adding 2 more for the Ani and 2 more for the Balabait. Okay? Because in every one of these cases, every one of us has an Issa D'Rabbanan, and there were 4 cases. So, but the Mishnah is only counting right now one way. Even though it's true that there are 4, but the Mishnah, when it says that there are 2 deoraita that turn into 2 other ones, is only speaking about Akira. Akira means the uprooting. So now when I uproot this, I go like this, and then he takes it from me. I didn't do the placing. Is Amnon over Isur D'Rabbanan? Yes, he is. However, the Mishnah is not speaking about that. Why not? I know, but I'm talking about Isur D'Rabbanan. Patur, by the way, in masechet Shabbat, almost across the board, besides very few exceptions, Patur means Aval Asur. This is a very important rule. Aval Asur, but prohibited. Patur means you don't have to, you're Patur from Mitah, and you're Patur from a carbon if you did it by mistake. But there's an Isur D'Rabbanan.
Patur d'oraita, but
Isur D'Rabbanan. So these cases are Isur D'Rabbanan. And when I go like this, and then Amnon takes it from me and he does the Hanacha, of course he has the same Isur that I have. So if we just mention 4 cases, why is the Mishnah in the first clause, Yitzchak to Shabbat, Shtaim Shein Arba, it only turns into 2 more cases for me, and 2 more cases for him? There should really be 4 more cases for me and 4 more cases for him. The half cases, there are 4 half cases. Half, I mean, you're only doing half. 4 of them. So therefore, each person, in every one of those 4 cases, both parties are being an over, are transgressing in a violation midrabanan. So it should really say Shtayim bachutz, shehein sheish. It turned into 6 cases because I have an additional 4 for myself, and 2 for you, the Raita. It turned into 6. It doesn't. It says 2 more. 2 more. Why? Because the Mishnah is only. It's a number game today. It's only counting no, we're going now to the Drabbanans. The Drabbanans of Akira, of uprooting. Why? Why not the Hanachas? because the truth is, it's really asur to do the hanacha. But the Mishnah is more worried about the akira, because the akira can end up turning into a complete isur.
Yeah.
If I start an akira, buddy, hey, whoa, you can finish. Right? By the way, every time you pick up something in your house, it's an akira, right? Is that asur midrabanan? No, it's just asur midrabanan when you actually complete it with somebody else. You say, all I did was an akira. I wasn't over on the Torah. The Torah said, you're right, you weren't over. The Chacham said, but you weren't allowed to do that. You know why? Because you might end up finishing it. Okay, now, a hanocha man is also not allowed to do it. But we're never worried that the hanocha man is going to end up completing, because he is the completion of the act. He can't end up being over, transgressing the Doraita. And therefore, even though they're both Asur D'Rabanan, I'm not saying it's not Asur D'Rabanan, but the Mishnah is only speaking about the more dangerous one. And in the more dangerous one, pay attention, in these 4 cases, 2 of them, the Ani is doing the Akira, and 2 of them, Amnon, the Balabait, is doing the Akira. So there's only 2 more and 2 more. The 4 Hanachot that are taking place by me and Amnon, they're there and they're Asur, but the Mishnah is not speaking about them. Got it?
Is that about the Reshut to Reshut?
Yeah.
So what happens if you make the Akira, but it doesn't ending on the other side? Just put it back.
So that's fine.
So there's no Avera at all.
Right, that's what we do
If
it.
you say from the beginning, if it's Akira, it's already considered like he's going to finish it. But even though he's not finished it, he has no Avera. He put it back.
Yes, right, exactly. There's not even, for sure not Isur D'Oraita, right? And there's not even Isur D'Rabanan. Okay, so now we got the 2 Isur D'Oraita for the Ani, the 2 Isur D'Oraita for the Balabait, the 2 added Akirot, just Akirot, because it wasn't the Hanacha, for the Ani, and the 2 Akirot for the Bal Habayit, which are Isurei D'Rabbanan. Okay, so we're done the Mishnah. Very good, very, very easy.
It doesn't talk about the Isurei Rabbanan at all.
Those are the last 2 cases.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't say patur. It only says patur. It doesn't say asur.
Patur means,
That's the
the
definition.
definition of patur now, of about 90 cases, there's a Gemara that says that patur v'mutur, there's a few exceptions in the whole Shabbat. But it's a very important introduction. I should have said that before. Sorry, I didn't. Whenever it says patur, it means aval asur. And therefore, they really are explaining the shehein arba that turn into 4. Because these are the 2 additional cases that turn into 4.
We can go home now, right? We're done?
That's it. So now, Tanan Hatam. Okay. We learned there. Where's there? There's a Mishnah in Shavuot. The Mishnah in Shavuot has a bunch of cases, and it bunches all them together. It's just very simply, it says, there's cases of Shavuot, there are 2 that turn into 4. Cases of Shabbat, 2 into 4. Cases of Nigaim, of Tzarat, I'll explain them now. But that's just the basic, right? So the Gemara has a little bit of a problem that the Mishnah here delineates more cases than there. That's the basic setup of the next question. Very innocent question. It's not such a, it's a very simple question, but let's just explain the Mishnah there. It says there, Tanan Hatab Shvuot Shtayim Shehin Arba. In oaths, it's really swearing and not keeping your oath. There are 2 oaths that turn into 4. Basically, the 2 oaths are the future. Okay, I make a shavua that I won't eat in the future, or I will eat, and I don't keep those chas v'shalom. The person doesn't keep that shavua, then he's over on the isur of making a false shavua, and he has to bring a carbon. Okay, has to bring a carbon. Though there are 4 cases Those two are the principal cases. But really, the derivatives are another two cases. They turn into four. What's the other cases? The other cases is that you said something in the past. Even though the Torah really says lehara or lehetiv. Lehara or lehetiv means negative connotations or positive connotations. But in Hebrew, ask any of the people that speak Hebrew, lehara or lehetiv is in the future. To do bad, to do good. I will eat something. I will not eat this piece of meat. Okay? I swear I won't eat this. And then you did, or you didn't. You said you will, you didn't. You said you won't, you did. So then you bring a carbon. Now, but then the Torah says something that's a little bit more obscure. And we learn from there that there are another two cases in the Torah. What are they? Anything a person expresses through his mouth. So the Gemara learns out that includes another two cases of the past. I swear that I didn't drink this. I swear. But you did. I swear that I drank this, but you didn't. Now those cases, you also chayav a carbon all of yaretz. Okay? That's the two that turn into four. Why didn't you just say four? Because two of them are clear in the pasuk, and the other two are more derived from the second half of the pasuk. Then there's a case of tumah. Yiduota tumah shtaim shein arba. There's an Isur in the Torah, and this Isur comes with the penalty of bringing another, a carbon of olav yored. What's carbon olav yored? Up and down. It means if you're wealthy, you bring an animal. If you're not as wealthy, you bring two birds. And if you're really poor, you bring a mincha. Okay? Another case is yidiot tumah, which means a person that knew that he was tamei, then he forgot. Okay? And he entered into an area that was holy. Like Harabayit. Okay? And then he figures it out, he brings a carbon. Another case is, he was tamei, he forgot, and he ate kachim. Kachim means holy items. You didn't enter a holy area, but you ate holy items when you forgot about your tumah. Those are the two principal cases. Okay? And they turn into four cases. What's the four cases? That you know you're tamei. You didn't forget that you're tamei. I'm tamei, but I forgot that this area is holy. Or, second case, that was the third, that was right, is I know I'm tamei, but I forgot that this piece of meat is sacrificial meat, it's holy. That is not as clear in the pasuk, but the Gemara learns it out of pasukim. So those are the two added cases. The two main cases are where I forgot that I was tamei, and I entered a holy domain or I ate holy items. And the other two cases, I knew I was tamei, but what I forgot was I forgot the holy things, the holy area. And then marot negaim shnaim sheina ba'a. Marot negaim are two that turn into four. What's the two that turn into four? Nigaim, the Torah says, there's two main. Nigaim are afflictions of tzarat. They translate as leprosy. It's not leprosy, but for lack of a better, we'll call it leprosy. Tzarat. When a person does about different averot, we know the most famous one is lashon hara. But so he is afflicted with a sort of nega, an affliction, a skin malady, which makes him, if all the details and all the qualifications, all the conditions are met, it creates tumah, he's impure. The Torah lists two principal maladies, two principal nigaim, afflictions. The main one of them is called se'et. You're giving shiur now?
No,
sure?
Finish and I can try.
Yeah. And one is called Baheret. Se'et and Baheret. Two white Nigaim. One of them is really white like snow. And one of them is like the white of the fleece, right? Sheep, the wool of Right, the wool of sheep. So se'et is the whitest one. Excuse me, se'et is the sheep, and baheret is the whitest one that's like white like snow. Those are the two principal ones. She'ena ba'ad, I turn into another two. What are the other two? The other two are, since the Torah over there says sapachat, sapachat means like a derivative. It's like a tolda, a derivative of this one and a derivative of that one. So the derivative of the baheret, of the snow white, is like the white plaster in the heichal of the Beit HaMikdash. Okay? The heichal was the inside, the inner, not the holy of holies, but the holies, where they placed the menorah, the mizbeach apnim, and the shulchan.
What was white?
The plaster.
The wall.
The walls. The plaster of the holies that's like lower white than snow white. It's one little level less. Right? You know the painters, they bring 50 whites for you to decide what you want to color your house. You have no idea what to do, right? So the Torah, it speaks about these four. So the derivative of snow white is the heichal white. And the derivative of the sheep wool white is the sapachat, is like the white of the membrane around the egg. Okay? So that's two that turn into four. And then it says, Yitziot Shabbat, Shtayim Shein Arba. And it says, Yitziot Shabbat, carrying from domain to domain, there are two cases that turn into four. Okay, now what did we say in our Mishnah? If you see the our Mishnah, it says, there are two cases that turn into four for the man that is standing inside, for Amnon, and there are two cases that turn into four for the man outside. But the Mishnah in Shavuot doesn't say that. It says there are two cases that turn into four, period. Not two cases that turn into four for him, and another two cases that turn into four for me. No, just two cases that turn into four. That's the Gemara's question. Why did our Mishnah delineate there's more than that. Not Shtayim Shein Arba. It's Shtayim Shein Arba for me, and the Shtayim Shein Arba for him.
Why is that such a big deal? I don't understand.
Why is it a big deal? Because when you write a Mishnah, we have to work with each other. If I tell you there's two cases turn to four and another two cases turn to four, and then you write the Rebbe's writing the same Mishnayot. Over there he says no, there's only two cases turn to four, not another two cases turn to four.
It deals with two different people, two different things.
Oh, so why doesn't it deal with that second person? Why only dealing with I don't know who you're dealing with in Shavuot. Let's say you're just dealing with the Ani. Why are you only dealing with him? Why don't you mention everything that the Mishnah mentioned here of the Balabayit?
Why not be clear? You say there's two for Ani, there's four. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the Balabayit, there's four. And you mention 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Everyone else understands. Why not? Why make it so complicated?
I think you're asking what the Gemara is asking, or you're saying your own question?
No, my question is, why does the Mishnah not elaborate? Why does the Mishnah make it more difficult than it really is?
Our Mishnah?
Yeah.
Our Mishnah, it does elaborate.
There are really four. Okay. So mention the four for the Ani. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bullet points or numbers. Okay, so there's the four for the Balabayit. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to explain.
I'll tell you why. That's a different question.
So we're making some fuss about this.
I hear. Daniel is asking a different question. He's saying, why don't you first write all four of the Ani,
Correct.
and then all four of the Balabayit?
Yeah.
The answer to that is because the Mishnah didn't want, just like in the first few words of the Mishnah, Shtayim Shein Arba. Why do you call it Shtayim Shein? Why did you call it Arba?
Right.
Arba.
Right.
And then list four. The answer is they're totally different categories. The Shtayim, and they turn into four because it's the Rabbanan.
You say, okay, four, fine. Okay, there's Arba for the Ani, and the first two are category 1, and the second two are category B. Also good.
Okay, I hear that question. But the Mishnah wanted to make it very clear that there's some that are Doraita, so delineated the Doraita cases by themselves in their own category, and then you went to Shlav Bet to speak about the Derabanans.
You can still do that. The first two are Doraita, and this first
Well, it almost does that. It almost does what you said. It just does it in a little bit of a different order. I'm not so sure. Okay, but what's the Gemara asking, Daniel? What's the Gemara asking? What's the Gemara's question here? I hear your question. But what's the Gemara's question? The Gemara's question is that it doesn't bring all 8 cases in Shavuot. It only mentions 2 that turn into 4. So the Gemara answers like this. So let's just read that inside. It's not working? It's working? And it doesn't mention anything else. So the Gemara says, Hacha de Ika Shabbatu v'tani avot v'tani toldot. Hatam de lavika Shabbatu avot tani toldot lo tani. Rabotai, the Mishnah says like this. Since this is masechet Shabbat, it only wants to it mentions the avot and the toldot. The toldot are also Yisur Deraita. Toldot means children. Avot means fathers. And there are derivative cases, which means in the Torah, this is a new thing, we didn't mention this yet today. In the Torah only speaks about people bringing from Reshut HaYachid to Reshut HaRabim. Okay? What happened? It's next week's parsha. It says, Vayitzav Moshe vayaviru kol b'machane lemor. Moshe called out to everyone and saying, Ish v'isha yasu od melacha l'tumat HaKodesh vayikale ha'am mehavi. Don't bring any more things. Today is Shabbat. Where were they bringing it? They were bringing it from their tents into Machane Leviah, where Moshe Rabbeinu would teach Torah. So since he taught Torah, it was a public thoroughfare. That was Reshut HaRabim. And he said, everybody stop, it's Shabbat. Don't bring me things for the Mishkan. Thank you, but it's Shabbat. Stop. So we see that building of the Mishkan doesn't push off Shabbat. Shabbat is stronger. I'm saying these things quick, but because we know them, and that's not the main point here. The main point is that is where we learn out the Istur of Hotza'ah. So what does it speak about there? Only one way. Going from the Reshut HaYachid to the Reshut HaRabim. How do you know the other way? The other way is a tolda. It's a derivative. And the Gemara says that it's a svara. It's logical. If this way is a complete melacha, that way is also a complete melacha. However, so in our Mishnah, which is masechet Shabbat, and it wants to teach you everything about this melacha, that's the whole purpose of our Mishnah, it teaches you all the cases. So therefore, how many cases are chayav in our Mishnah with going into Reshut HaRabim? Shtayim. And how many cases are going to be chayav the other way? Shtayim. So therefore we have to have Shtayim, which turn into 4 of the Rabbanans for the Ani, and Shtayim for the Balabayit. Okay? Now, by the way, if you remember that the Ani sometimes is he's being over this way and sometimes being over this way. The Balabayit is sometimes being over this way and sometimes. So each one of the cases of the Shtayim, and the Shtayim of the Ani, each one has one case of going for Shesiyachid to Shesiyam and one case for Shesiyam to Shesiyachid. So to the Balabayit have one case. So here we have to speak about everything because here it's Masechet Shabbat. But in Shavuot, the reason why they didn't say Shtayim Shein Arba for him and Shtayim Shein Arba for him, they just said Shtayim Shein Arba, is because they were speaking about the Avot. The Avot is only one way. The actual pasuk in the Torah is only from indoors to outdoors. The Akira taking place indoors. So for those cases, there are only 2 ways. What are the 2 ways, Rabbatai? What are the 2 ways? Either the Ani takes from the indoors and he puts it into Amnon's hand, or to Reshut. Excuse me. Let's scratch that. It's not true. The other way. Either the Ani takes from the indoors to out. That's the case of Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, don't do that. Don't bring to the Reshut HaRabim. Or the other way was that Amnon
takes it out from out to in.
Takes it out from in to out. Both cases in the Mishnah and Shavuot have to be from in to out. And that's why there's only 2 cases that are Doraita. Well, we know there's another 2 cases. When we go from out to in, and I could do that, and Amnon could do that. He could stick his hand all the way out and bring it in, and I can do it by placing. But they're not mentioned in Shavuot. You know why? Because that's a tolda. So since we're only mentioning the cases of going from in to out, those two cases are shtayim. And those two cases have two derabanans that come out of them. Okay? The other two cases that are deoraita are not mentioned in Shavuot. So the Gemara explains itself. Hata delav ikar Shabbatu avot tani toldot lotani. It doesn't want to mention toldot. And what are the avot? Avot maniu yitziot. Yitziot trehavim. There's only two of them. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says now, the Gemara asks a question, Avot maniu yitziot, v'yitziot trehavim. So the Gemara says like this, there's a new question. The Gemara says, what's that? How many cases do you have here? You have two cases. So in those two cases of yitziot, from Yershut HaYachid to Yershut HaRabim, so what does it mean, shehein arba? What does it mean, arba? There's no four cases, there's only two cases. So you might say, so what are you going to say it means? You're going to say, relax. It means they turn into four, midrabanan. The other two are midrabanan, when I didn't do the complete thing. I said, you can't do that. Why not? Because because the next case in the Mishnah over there, or not the next case, but two cases later, are the afflictions. Just like there, when it says two that turn into four, all four are deoraita. Right? All four shades of afflictions are deoraita. So you can't say that by Shabbat, they mean two deoraita that turn into four, which is the other two are derabanan. Okay? So Ela Amar Rav Papa says no. Hacha de Ika Shabbatu Tani Chiyuve Upture. Here that it's the main subject is Shulchot Shabbat. So the Tana goes into all the details. And he says the Chiyuvim and the Pturim, even the Isuri de Rabbanan. Hata de Lavika Shabbatu Chiyuve Tani Upturi Latani. It doesn't want to speak about the Isuri de Rabbanan at all. Okay? So what are the chiyuvei? Says the Gemara, chiyuvei ma'niu yitziot. So what are the chiyuvim? Chiyuvim are two. Yitziot, bringing it out from Rishut Yachid to Rishut Rabim. Yitziot tartehav, that's only two cases. So what does it mean, she'en arba? So the Gemara says, shtayim da hotza'ah u shtayim da hachnasa. Oh, shtayim she'en arba, you know what that means? Not that turn into four, because there's another two derabanans. Two deoraitas that turn into four deoraita. So why are you mentioning, so just say four deoraita? No. Because the other two are hachnasa, bringing it indoors. Those are not befeirush, explicit in the Torah. Those are only learnt out from svara, which are also deoraita. But that's what it means. You're right. It's talking about all of them have to be deoraita, just like afflictions. But it means two main, and the other two learned to have svara. Problem is, says the Gemara, it doesn't say hachnasa. It says two that turn into four yitziot, taking out. Amar Rav Ashi, Tana hachnasa nami otah karila. The Tana in Shavuot is calling hachnasa entering also hotza'ah. Okay? That's it. Why? Because it's hotza'ah from a domain. It's not hotza'ah where it's actually ending up, like taking it outdoors, but you're taking out of the domain. So there are two cases which are written in the Torah, which really turn into four cases of transporting an item out of its domain into another domain. That's what it means there. And it doesn't speak about the Derabanans at all there. Okay? Mimai. How do you know that you can call hachnasa hotza'ah? Midetena motzi mirishut rishut chayav. There's a Mishnah later on in Perek HaZorek that says if someone takes out from one rishut to the other, you're chayav. Milo askinon. Isn't it talking about that you take from outdoors to indoors as well? And v'kakari lahotza'ah, and it calls it hotza'ah there. V'tayim of mine, what's the reason that it calls it Hotzah? Because kol akirat chayfetz mimkomo tana Hotzah karila. Anytime you uproot an item, a chayfetz, an object, from the area where it is now lying and situated, and you uproot it from there and bring it to some another domain, that is called taking it out. Even though it's not taking it outdoors, you're taking it indoors, but you took it out of its domain into another domain. Even our Mishnah, you could see that Yitziot, the Tana is calling Yitziot even the Hachnasot, because it says Yitziot. What does it explain? Right after it says Yitziot Shabbat, Shtayim Shina Arba Biftim, right? What does it say right away? Ketzad, what's the case that it says? If the Ani places his hand inside. Right, look at the case. And he puts it into the hand of the Balabayit. That's the first, that's one of the Yitziot. What Yitziot? That's Achnasa. So you see, Shma Mina, you see that even our Tana calls Yitziot, the Achnasot are called Yitziot. Rava Amar, last answer, Rava says, he's also explaining how Achnasot are called Yitziot. The word Yitziot in our Mishnah is Rishuyot Ktani. The pshat is Rishuyot Shabbat, Shtayim. How many domains are there on Shabbat that there will be an Isur of Melacha of Hotza'ah, of carrying? There are Shtayim. There are Rishut HaRabim and Rishut HaYachid. Shehein Arba. These two domains turn into 4 Isurim. Okay? How? Again, there are 2 domains. That's what it means, the Mishnah. Okay? In Shavuot and in Shabbat. 2 domains, says Rava. Yitziot HaShabbat. Shtayim. There are 2 domains. Shehein Arba, that from those 2 domains, you can derive 4 cases of Isurei Deoraita. That's what the Mishnah means here. And that's what the Mishnah means in Shavuot as well. Got it? Okay, tomorrow is a new question. Chazak